Happy Thursday, gentlemen. How's everybody doing today?
Almost well.
Almost, but not quite.
Not quite. Sunday we'll get there.
Is that Sunday as in 3 days from now, or someday as in who knows?
Someday,
Okay,
sun will come out tomorrow, maybe.
maybe. We have hope. It's actually nice and toasty on the East Coast, but I'm keeping all the cold air in so I don't have to run the AC later on. So I'm over here
Right.
bundled up and like turn the camera on here. Got my layers on, so I'm bundled up cold in the basement, but I'll go outside in a little bit and just bask in the nice warm weather out there.
My office is in the attic space above the garage. So heat is not a problem for me. Fortunately or not, depending on the time of year.
That it does.
Deanna, are you healthy yet?
I was literally coughing a second ago. No,
Oh no.
not as bad as I've been, but not well.
I was working the local election here on Tuesday, and yesterday I had a sore throat coming out of that. And I was thinking, oh, boy, I hope they didn't give me something, but knock wood, I'm feeling all right today. So other folks don't want to join in today. And Jeff's got this awesome proposal. So I wonder if anybody wants to come and chat about that.
This is a pretty awful, ugly proposal that I was trying to throw together at least the high level shape to at least, I don't know, maybe align on some direction items before I put more effort into it.
I'm contemplating what I think about that endpoint name.
Oh, I don't love it, but I didn't love any of the options I came up with. So,
We could use an extension,
um,
underscore OCI.
yeah, that was kind of another thought, was using an extension for it instead of putting it directly in there. That might be a better approach ultimately. There's part of me is like, well, I can just, keep in like Rust standard things, whatever, and just slap a slash history on the end of the manifests, but that would get ugly because then it wouldn't really work for digests. And it's like, well, it could even do just a tag history slash tag. That kind of seems wordy and ugly. So I don't know. I don't love it. But also maybe an extension is a better idea.
Yeah, the risk of adding stuff into that path is I'm mentally going through the process here is it possible for that to ever collide with something else in terms of if somebody made a repository name with the string tag in it, and if somebody made a tag itself with the value history, and if someone had a tag name that was manifest. Actually, I think we can't collide on that. I hate it, but we can.
It turns out if the users can make life miserable, they will.
Yeah. So I'll throw it in the chat of the tag I'm thinking of. So slash v2. some, let's say, repo slash the, you know, I'll say project X, and we'll have a repo name of tag. And is it manifest plural or singular? I always have to go back and look, but manifest slash history.
It's plural.
It is plural. Okay. Thank you for that. So this could collide depending on whether they want to get a history of tags for the tag name manifest, or if they want to get the tag for the repository name tag with the tag value of history.
Out of curiosity, is there anything that prevents people from doing like a repository named blobs or manifests or tag like today, or is that just sort of because these endpoints existed first, it never would have worked?
So there's nothing stopping them from doing that today, but I don't think it'll collide because of the way the endpoints are. You've always got manifest in the endpoint name. You've always got blobs in the endpoint name after whatever they put in there.
Okay.
And so in this case, since we've got tag slash some user value slash another field, I think we're just introducing a point that we could collide. And so that's potentially, I think, user extension might be an easier path around this. Or, like an extension in there, just underscore OCI slash history as the extension. And then it'll never collide. That's semi-knit. We'd want to fix it, but it's semi-knit.
No, that's yeah. I'm not tied to it. I would say doing an extension probably is easier. So
Yeah.
I think I was probably more curious in um the actual like payload response and how to handle that.
That's why I say knit, because this is where the meat of the proposal is, I think, of how do we structure this? It's about paging behavior. I love that. We need more PRs that just like insert important
Okay.
details here that we
This
all
is a
say.
placeholder PR. I do want to clarify that. This is
It is
a
draft, but yeah, I love it. I know exactly what you meant. So I very much approve. And then you got the other API down here. You got it.
yeah, it's just that paging gets difficult in terms of how to even do it. So I need to put more thought into that. Because ideally, I would love to do paging off of like timestamp
Hmm.
in terms of yeah, give me the history beyond what you already gave me in the last response kind of a thing.
Give me history older than this date.
Yeah, that.
Hmm.
But if I do that, then it can't be a optional field to return back the date. It would be more of a required. But I'm also okay with making it required. I just wasn't entirely sure how many registry implementations are tracking timestamp or even tag history at all. But maybe this is another thing where if it's an extension, it's much more of a take it or leave it kind of thing.
And if people implement this, it may just be we only have history from some epoch date that they implemented the feature going forward. So they just wouldn't have older history. At least I know I would. Yeah, I mean, looking over it, I know we all want it. We can debate about some of the small details in there, but overall, I think it's definitely something we want.
So if we, out of curiosity, if we did a tag history made date required, then it would just be the history would not return. The history would only include things since the registry implemented it. So I was saying, sorry, let me gather my thought there. So you're saying in like your implementation or whatever, like there's just no history tracking whatsoever, not just missing the date, you're missing the entire history.
Yeah, I'm thinking how many registries are tracking history today that don't have the date of that history?
And maybe that's a non-existent count.
Yeah. Because if that is non-existent, then there's nobody that's going to be in this in-between state of I have history, but I don't have the date. Because the other two edge cases are easy. If you don't have the data, you don't have the data. You just don't give them anything.
No, that makes sense. Because I would say even like worst case, you could always return current tag um, with no date, but
Hmm.
nothing beyond that. Okay. Yeah, let me rephrase some of that. But
Yeah, overall, we're going the right direction. It's a feature we need. Welcome, Sam and Brian. If you got any thoughts on this one, feel free to chime in. This is Jeff's idea of how we can start tracking history on tags as they've been created and changed over time. Otherwise, I'm so quiet today because I got next to nothing. I just wanted to announce that, hey, we actually merged Jeff's other PR, which was to be able to push by digest multiple tags, which also solves the problem of how do you push by tag with a non-canonical digest. So this is now in there, at least in the main branch. And then we still need to do all the conformance stuff, all that sitting out there ready for review. I know the conformance V2 is going to take a long while, but I just want to keep it on people's radar so that they don't forget we do need to review that one. Yeah. Otherwise, I got nothing. So we can chat more about your stuff, Jeff. I just wanted to explain why I was being so quiet.
nope, as I just kind of threw together what I could real quick. I'm just gonna get how, I mean, maybe a quick little guidance if we have nothing else in terms of have we ever done a extension proposal?
We had thoughts of doing it.
I mean, I know, yeah. Do I just add in? I don't
I
know.
mean, we've got the OCI endpoint list here. We defined the discover endpoint, which was supposed to be a way you can discover extensions. So theoretically,
Would it just be a new
yeah,
markdown file?
I, I think
Or
if we're using the OCI as the top level, I think it goes in this. Like here, module is discover, so OCI ext. I don't like that we add two layers there. Feels redundant. I guess you could say OCI tag history, and that would be an extra entry in this file.
it'd be
So,
underscore OCI ext slash tag history. Or
so ext is the component for endpoints relating to extensions. So this is more like
oh,
a meta extension.
okay.
And so I would say the component for tag would be anything related to managing tags, and then the actual module would be history for looking up the history for tags.
What if someone named the repository underscore? No, that's shouldn't.
That you can't do. That's why we picked the underscore for in there. If somebody does that, they're in trouble. Hey there, Sajay. You came in late on your favorite topic. We're talking about the tag history.
I'm really trying to find the unmute button on Zoom. Keeps moving on me. Sorry.
I just figured you were in stunned silence. That's all right.
Awesome.
Yeah, the bit that I mentioned to Jeff was that this endpoint has a potential to collide. If someone named a repository.
History tag, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it over here. Just add my comment just for tracking in here. Boy, my typing is all over the place here. There we are. So that's my one concern. So we were talking about changing this to using the module or the extensions that we defined way back in the day and making an extension component for tags and making the module history and just underscore OCI slash tags slash history. Then you can pass which tag you want the history on inside of a parameter or something like that. Or if you wanted to, you can make the component history and the module will just be whatever the tag is you're trying to look up. But that might be a
Yeah,
little.
just because yeah, it's a naming collection issue, right?
So over here, it's a potential collision just because we
Yeah.
can have a tag name manifest and a repo name tag.
Okay.
Those are always the fun problems, aren't they? But I like, if we start using the extension interface in there, that's a good first use of it if we did that.
I mean, I still have my tag listing v2. I guess that could also be an extension instead of a modification of the existing tag list.
Yeah. As I was mentioning, Jeff, that's more of a nit. The endpoint is easy enough to tweak up there. I think the bigger question Jeff was asking was, hey, if we start listing this, thinking about pagination in there, thinking about how people want to query this, um, whether JSON is the right format there, if you need anything else. I like the idea of, I feel like the creative time is pretty important. So changing that from a should to a must, that feels important enough to me. Because what Jeff and I were discussing was that there probably won't be any existing registries that are tracking tag history already that weren't also tracking the creation time. If there are exceptions, feel free to shout out. But if you weren't tracking history at all, then going forward, when you do start tracking history, if you track history, then you would track the creation time. And hopefully everybody else that was already doing it already has that data. So Sashi, I just want to make sure I'm following the comment there. It would be easier to root that off. Are you thinking of, is that a
The
thumbs
module,
up?
yeah,
Is that a thumbs up on using the extensions?
yeah, the extensions are easier to kind of like without breaking the existing API or modifying the accept headers and things like that. But
Yeah,
that's also what we want finally.
yeah.
And I want to be sympathetic to whoever's going to be implementing this first. Uh, okay, yeah, Ram Kumar is also like, can we standardize the extension on OCI?
And yeah, oh, OCI, we were saying tags history. My goodness. Small screen on the other side of the room here almost. So if we did that, it would be OCI tags history as the extension name. And then from there, you would pass parameters to query with the tag name you're looking for, with the creation time you might want to be before. And then all the tags from that point older than that would show up. That would give you your pagination that we were talking about. So yeah, I think that is 3 thumbs up there for you, Jeff, to use the OCI extension.
Got it.
I'll include myself, Ram, and Sachet all in that. So if either of you other two gentlemen didn't like that idea, feel free to say, no, Brandon, you're terrible for that. I take criticism well. Now I will not use my moderation powers here for evil and kick anybody out for saying that.
Tiana knows better than to criticize.
I feel like Tannen only criticizes, and that's the best thing about having him around. Keeps things fun. All right.
Woof.
We love you, Diana.
We do. It's the best thing about having him around. Just throw the wrench in the middle of everything. I mean, it's usually my job, so having Tina take away that task from me is just makes my life easy.
So sometimes it's best not to sugarcoat things. So let's just go to the truth.
It keeps things more fun. I'm reading Rom's comment here about pagination, query, etc. should be a standard thing for blobs, manifest, tags, catalog, endpoints. Um, and are we approaching it piecemeal? So yeah, I think my knee-jerk reaction here is that if there is pagination that comes out of the registry, we should probably follow the normal HTTP RFC on the pagination that we try to adopt for tags as the alternate version of tag pagination. But if someone wants to put a query parameter in there and say, hey, give me stuff past this certain date, that would be a nice to have.
I hope no one does a list blobs endpoint. That would be fun.
Let's go even farther. Let's resurrect catalog, but make it also list all the blobs on the entire registry.
I just think we need pagination on the blob. So the registry starts returning a blob and halfway through it says, yeah, here's the link to the next page of the blob. Come on, I'm laying it up easy here. You can criticize that one. That's a
I
terrible idea.
mean, the RFC already supports that, right? RFC 5988.
Oh, good times, good times. Please
We
nobody implement that.
we got this. No, the bigger problem is that implementing RFC 5988 is not consistently done across clients and servers, especially with regards to angle brackets. That's not ideal.
We're
I've
both kind of
I've been spending some time digging into issue 443 on the distribution spec and which things were actually lost from the spec. And the results are interesting. One of the things that was deleted from the spec was that it originally had support for multiple digest query parameters on blob upload put, so that you could say, here's here's multiple digests of the same blob with different algorithms, but that was never implemented. The language in the spec was entirely aspirational. That one's the funniest thing I found so far.
I kind of feel like if we just had some aspirational text, sometimes it's nice to delete that one out.
Yeah, that's one that I don't feel too bad about losing, but there's other stuff that does feel bad. Like the fact that get on a blob may return 307, and basically every server that I tested against, looked at, does return 307s on blobs. But the spec says it must return a 200. And we currently have 2 issues open about that, and a PR that was opened about that by Sajay to try and fix it. And it got closed
Yeah,
because we don't want to add
I died
redirects
on
to the
that hill.
spec, but the redirects already exist. Like, this isn't adding redirects to the spec. This is restoring redirects that the spec already specified and that are already widely implemented.
I, I died on that hill, Tiana. So it's like, okay, let's move on. It's kind of what I assumed if nobody wants to kind of fix it out. Yeah, I mean, anybody who comes to this call knows that that's pretty much how every registry implements it, unfortunately. But
The bit I'm looking for is I know we're trying to delegate as much as possible to the RFCs out there. And so I feel like the answer to that was that we should have a note in here of which HTTP RFCs people need to make sure they're paying attention to.
Yes, we do have a lot of that. There are quite a few explicit RFC references, but for exit codes, we're always prescriptive and exhaustive. And your new conformance tests are even verifying that, but you probably already injected 307 as a valid response or just dealt with the 307 and followed through to the
Yeah.
200 on the redirect and assumed that that must apply to the original request, and so it's fine.
Yeah, so I'm going to say neither, because what I do is I just let the Go HTTP client handle that for me.
Yeah, which is fair, but also doesn't match the spec. The spec says it must return a 200.
Yeah, so the place I was like getting ready to jump in there on is you use the phrase exhaustive, and I don't think we're exhaustive. We we might want to be very explicit on here all the different response codes, but it is not a full list.
Sorry, yeah, that was an inaccurate description. The phrasing in the spec makes it sound like we're trying to be exhaustive.
Yeah.
And the number of examples makes it look like we're trying to be exhaustive, but we fairly obviously aren't exhaustive.
Yeah. I know for a fact that a lot of these that servers will I've gotten a whole lot of 500 error codes out there. I've been doing really good at getting those. So I know those exist. There are also different error codes for if you start throwing too much data at it. The Go HTTP server itself will throw back some errors if you put too many client headers on it. So there are things that we haven't documented that I know all servers out, not maybe not all servers, but a whole lot of servers out there will throw back error codes that are not on our list.
Yeah, which is a slightly different thing than the constraint of must return 200, which feels more final.
Yeah. But that's kind of where I'm on the path of if we point to the HTTP RFC of saying, hey, you should implement redirects this way, you should implement these things, just following the upstream specs as one top level section rather than trying to specify that for every endpoint here. That might be an easier solution and also a more accurate solution about how a lot of clients are implemented today.
Yeah, that would make sense. Because then the 200 response is from the end of the redirect chain, not the initial request.
Yeah.
Less on the HTTP specifics and more on the HTTP semantics.
So going back to Saj's original issue, I don't know if Saj, if was it closed? Was that separate issue that he had closed or just abandoned after a while?
Yeah, I think the problem with the redirect was the fact that authentication was an issue. So we don't touch authentication, and then it kind of got some discussion, and we then decided to drop it altogether.
I mean, we didn't really drop it. We just didn't do anything with it, which is kind of a
Yeah.
standard process with us. To me, dropping would be we came back and actively closed it. We're tracking this as an open issue. Yeah, let's add a section to the spec. I like it. Let's do it. Who wants to do the work? It's that last question that gets us every time.
No, it's yeah. Oh, this was what's the associated PR on that 398? Is that a PR or is that an issue? Or it came
Three,
from the issue?
398 was your PR, Sajay.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. And I think,
Yeah,
Brett, part of the reason we get caught up on that last question of who wants to do the work is because doing the work isn't just writing a change to the spec, right?
yeah.
It's you open the PR and you end up with this of pushback of, hey, this shouldn't even be in the spec when it's always been in the spec and every implementation includes this, but here we are. Sorry, maybe that's a little too spicy. I'll tone it down.
No, we can go look at the changes, and if there's anything that I can reopen this or create a new PR, I'm happy to do it. That's all. I just wanted to say 307 was an accepted error, nothing more than that. Um,
Yeah, I think my push is to get this beyond just blobs. I would look to have it as a top level for the entire spec of saying all clients should just know to follow the standard RFCs.
Yeah, I think Mike actually had a comment over there, right? If you remember, that's kind of where we went down to the auth rabbit hole, and then there's nothing much I could do after that. So
You can very easily say, hey, auth is still out of scope until we get the working group done, which Jeff and I are actively working so hard on right now. Oh, Jeff ran away. He couldn't even hear
I'm
me call
just
that out.
being polite here as much as I can without pushing anything back. I mean, if people understand it, and if it's not the most burning thing, then uh, I was okay just kind of letting it drop. But it's but it does bring up a good conversation. Maybe we should just defer to the RFC, and that way we don't have to talk about the exit codes. The issue is that it says 200 is expected, which cannot be the case when you have like a pretty big blob or something like that. So it's odd that we don't give a correct exhaustive pointer, or at least something that people can reason with, that handle exit status codes according to RFC might be in a better state. I think what you mentioned might be a better option.
Yeah, because the RFC has details on what this is, and so adding decent handling for that on the client side, just universally, not just on the blobs, but everywhere. And then that leaves that section where we define the endpoint saying that it must return 200 as being
Yeah.
the eventual return code you're going to get, not necessarily the first one you get.
Yeah, we're seeing 206s now, right? So that's the other problem. So it's an interesting situation.
So 206, when you're getting the partial content, should only be when you request the partial content. So we specifically put the header in there that said, please give me partial content. And 206 is telling you, I actually did what you told me you wanted me to do.
Yeah, and that's why. So it would be easier if we just pointed to the RFC in these cases rather than um, have the 200 in there. The spec for 200 is just incomplete, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I mean, somewhere in here we've got all the partial stuff. I won't scroll through here right now to find it, but I feel like we've got a bunch of the partial code in there because I definitely implemented by what we said, and I thought we put the RFC in there as well for that. Let's see, content type, header. Pagination stuff was earlier. Warning headers. We're good at linking to RFCs out there. Yeah, so the range request on pulling blobs, we link over to that RFC. And this in here, I'm pretty sure specifies somewhere that the registry will give you a 206 if it worked. And if it doesn't work, it tells you that you're going to get 200. Where was I? We had range request in here somewhere, and then yeah. It's no fun watching me click through specs though, so I won't do that. But at the very least, we do specify at least some of this. Oh, that's why Sashi went quiet. He had a jump. We went past the half hour. All right, folks. That was all I had. We're more than happy to chat about more of these things. Or y'all can break early, get a few minutes before your next meeting. Everybody's being quiet. I think you all want a break, don't you? The crickets say yes. So, on that note, I think we can call an early wrap up there. Thanks everybody for joining. Back here, same time next week. And hopefully we'll have more stuff for the discussion. But otherwise, it's getting that time of year. People want to get outside, take breaks, something like that. So have a great rest of your week and see y'all next time. Cheers all.